Hey guys, welcome back to Chat Roulette. I think this is episode 4 now?
3?
Maybe 3, maybe 4. I think it's 4. I'll double check.
It might be 4. It may well be 4. Yeah.
I think it's 4. How are you doing today, Xab? How are things?
Things are good. As we were saying just before, I'm in absolute pieces today from doing stupid things to myself in the gym yesterday.
Always.
Yeah. How are things with you? How's Portugal?
Portugal's great. It's really warm. I similarly hurt myself doing stupid things in the gym yesterday, so I've got a jacked up neck. Zab's got a jacked up posterior chain, so we're both going to be like sat like this and like moving our spines during this, I think.
Yeah, I'm just gently going to rock my seat from side to side to just try and see if that little bit of rotation helps.
Everything to help, right? Wicked.
Yeah, anything you can do.
Let's jump into it. We've got a few different ones on here. I think we should go for a multi-answer one again, because actually it was quite nice to bang through a few.
I agree. I think it was smooth. Stops us getting too off topic as well.
Yeah, it keeps us mildly more on track. Right, I'll give it a spin. What have we got? I'm always excited because I forget what I've put on there.
It's training arms. I was already excited about this when I saw that. I was like,
training arms functional? This is like the functional training question. Do you want to go first?
Define functional.
I think it can be whatever. No, here's the thing. I'm going to define functional. It can be anything that allows you to better perform a physical task that isn't fucking bodybuilding. Whenever people are like, arms are functional if you're a bodybuilder, it's like, mate, just building infinite muscle mass till you have a heart problem isn't functional training. I don't care what you try and convince yourself.
Oh, man. I've told you before about what. So when I was doing like the theory side of the S&C level 4, they had like a section on hypertrophy, and the only question I got asked about hypertrophy training is, what is the one consequence of hypertrophy? And all the things that came up were negatives. But the one they wanted you to tick was just like, if you build hypertrophy, you end up with less vascular coverage of your muscle. So you end up with poorer delivery capacity to your muscle. Because obviously if you build more muscle, the surface of your area gets bigger. You will get more vascular, but the percentage of total coverage is going to get smaller.
Wow, okay.
So you end up with less oxygen delivery capacity per milliliter squared of...
Oh, I kind of wish you never told me that, because I used to just be like, nah, it's bullshit. If you get more muscle, you'll get more tired. I was like, no way. But I guess, I suppose at some point it doesn't matter. And eventually when you look like Ronnie Coleman, there'd be diminishing returns. But you can get pretty big before it's a problem. Like, look at the NFL.
Yeah. But then it's the whole thing of like, what's the difference between... how the different energy systems play a part in different sports as well, though, right? So the more anaerobic the exercise is, the more you need things within the muscle to operate efficiently, so systems within the muscle to operate efficiently rather than delivery of oxygen, etc.
This is true. I suppose it depends what you're doing.
It does, but let's get back on topic. We said, we're gonna stay on topic really, really easily because of the fact we're gonna do and it's like, gone, sideline, right. So is training arms functional? Again, it's like there's two sides to the question. What is functional and what is training arms? Because if we talk about training arms in isolation, and we're going fully supported to minimise the degree to which you like lose mechanical tension. So you're doing like a single arm preacher curl, or you're doing an overhead tricep extension with your arm fully supported on an upright bar. Not the most functional thing in the world, but is like a bench press an arm exercise.
Yeah,
technically, is a single arm cable chest press an arm exercise. Technically, yes. It's whether or not you're training a chain, whether you're kind of doing something compound, whether you're doing something integrative, versus whether you're doing something isolated. And I'm assuming that's kind of what you're getting at with the question, right?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, so my background on this is I used to think arm isolations, like bicep curls and stuff, were a bit of a waste of time. And I think because when I first started getting into like lifting, I was approaching it from like an Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting point of view. And it's like not that useful. But then the second you consider like jiu-jitsu and a big person's going to grab your arm with their arms, or doing rock climbing, for example, and you suddenly go, right, having a really strong wrist curl is actually useful. Having really strong biceps is useful. Having like strong fingers, strong rotation is useful. I mean, if you consider the shoulder as part of the arm, even doing like external and internal rotation. So I used to like, when I started, not coaching, but when I was programming for myself, I ignored arms. And I'd sort of started getting over the like arms aren't functional argument by the time I started coaching. And then I started using more arms with all my clients. And I was like, right, I've held my training back loads from not just doing a fucking bicep curl.
But I think you can argue that even the most strict bicep curl variation could still be deemed functional, or could still assist you in functional tasks, because 100%. It's that whole thing of like you're saying, if your bicep is the weak link in a particular movement pattern, you could continue to strengthen that movement pattern, but if the limiting factor is biceps, you may as well strengthen the bicep a little bit in order to then improve that your integrated capacity to produce force through that whole chain and through that whole movement. So yeah, I think you can pretty safely say that training arms could be functional. But again, training arms in isolation on their own with no other purpose other than to build muscle probably isn't the most functional thing in the world.
Yeah. That's quite a good way to put it. I think maybe you found it there with like training your arms in isolation. If your arms are the limiter of the thing you're doing or the thing that's most likely to be injured, then it makes sense to put time into isolated arm training because it's relatively low fatigue. Like, you're not going to fatigue your system doing a hard set of like hammer curls unless you were really going for it. And you're going to instantly be able to go, cool, I can put some size on, I can build strength specifically in this muscle, I can get blood flow to the tendons, I can get blood flow around the joint of the elbow.
Yeah.
And if it's the limiting factor in what you're doing, you're probably going to be pretty functional. If you are someone who just... Oh, go ahead.
But the other side of it as well is, like, as you were saying about kind of central nervous system capacity, right? If you're doing a session with somebody and you can do 8 sets of a compound lift with no real issue, no real drop off, and they're performing all 8 of those sets relatively comfortably, and you're doing that as part of a full body workout, that's probably great. But if you're seeing a drop off because central nervous system capacity is not really up to the task for the last like 4 sets, you're only getting 4 useful sets of that compound move or that integrative move. If you can then get an additional 4 sets of biceps or some other accessory movement, like, that's not going to be a bad thing, and it's just going to add to the overall load that you're placing on the person's body, which is then going to improve their central nervous system capacity moving forward. It's then going to improve their tolerance to training moving forwards, and it's going to help them build more muscle in the short term as well. So like that, yeah, I think it's kind of a like, you'd very rarely hear anyone say that doing like a leg extension or a hip thrust isn't a functionally useful thing to do. Like, you might hear the occasional person say, "I'll just squat or just lunge," but like, if at the end of your leg session you were like, okay, well, I've done all of the squats and all of the lunges you told me to do, but I still have a little bit of extra energy to go and do some leg extensions. As your coach, I'm not going to turn around and tell you, oh, don't bother with those.
Yeah. And it's so common to do like a hip thrust if you've got like a poor lockout on your deadlift. It's like, do hip thrust. But if you struggle to like finish your chin up, people are like, do more pull-ups. Don't just like do a bicep curl. The amount of people who get their first pull-up just from being given like 4 sets of bicep curls in a week has got to be insane.
Yep. I think the one that I've nearly gone off topic. I've nearly gone off topic again. Let's not let me get off topic. I've nearly done it 3 times over the course of this since we already went off topic once. No, I think we can safely say that training arms is functional so long as there is a functional purpose for how you're training your arms.
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to what we spoke about last time. If you've got a good purpose and there's a reason to use the tool of that exercise, it's a good exercise. If you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, it's probably a useless exercise.
And if you're just doing it for the sake of size and ego, it's not a useless exercise, but it's not functional.
It's not functional, yeah. It's like, if you want to get really, really big without improving any of your other athletic qualities, that is up to you, but it is not very functional. And I'm sure people will be like, oh, but it's adaptive for attracting a mate. Like, if you go into like the bro science pickup artist world of YouTube, they'll be like, you need to be muscular to seem dominant, but there's nothing more undominant than being really jacked, but then getting out of breath when you go up the stairs.
I mean, not being able to, yeah.
It's like
the days when I used to do bodybuilding and I used to struggle carrying my laundry upstairs. That was a sign that that was really bad. Just getting to the top of the stairs and just like curling up in a heap next to my laundry basket. Like, yeah, cool. That was good.
Okay, I've never got quite that bad. I can't imagine you being that bad because you've got an engine now as well.
The thing is, on flats I could run. So like I was still doing like 3 minute, a kilometre in a 3 minute like period. So I was still fine on flat ground, but stairs with laundry killed me. Yeah, that was just another level. I hadn't really conditioned myself properly for that as well. Plus, I was at university at the time, so when I did my laundry, there was quite a lot of laundry. It was like probably 3 loads in one basket, and I'm just there like bracing to try and carry this thing up the stairs, just developing insane levels of apnea.
You've also
Valsavering the whole way.
I was thinking inhaling like fumes from your still warm laundry as you probably washed it quite poorly heading up the stairs. Probably mould filled. I don't know what your halls were like. My halls were fucking horrible when I went uni. Like almost certainly mould filled dryers.
My halls, I got the cheapest accommodation in Birmingham, and the chant that you know how like all the halls have different chants about each other's halls. Yeah. So the chant that people used on us was like Maplebank living with rats, and in my second term at uni, we had 3 rats in our kitchen.
That's awful.
So no, it was entirely accurate. It was not the greatest place to live.
I was going to say, anyone who's not from England, the last thing you want to hear is I got the cheapest possible accommodation in Birmingham. Like to think you're going to like a really nice place, that's like the one thing you don't want to hear.
Mate, I did love it though. Like Maplebank was great.
I bet it was a laugh because when I lived in I lived in a really shitty building for a while. There was 17 of us in there as well, and like at this point, this was when I'd already decided I was dropping out my first degree, so I just lived there, didn't go uni. Loads of other people just took the piss, and like people were going insane by the end. I remember there was like this nice girl who used to do law, and then one night I walked downstairs and she was like smashing plates against the wall and stuff, just gone crazy. Because if you just live in a shit uni hall, you just have a laugh. You don't care about it.
I mean, yeah, uni halls were great for that. Like, and it's just you don't have any expectations at that point of what your life. You don't have any money anyway, so it's not like you can really expect to have nice things. So you just go through life with other people that are kind of struggling, and just sit in squalor but have a great laugh.
And drink cheap alcohol. Like, I think someone was drunk every night, and it just descends into more and more chaos. The flat gets more and more dirty. Like, life gets more and more chaotic.
There was always some form of macaroni cheese on someone's sideboard ready to be consumed.
Yeah.
Or some ridiculously dodgy looking chicken that probably wasn't chicken. Yeah.
The worst bit, isn't it? Is when the holidays come around and you go home, you remember what it's like to live like a real human.
Oh God, I hope my family never see this, because like my dad would be so disappointed if he knew that. Yeah,
that's life. All right then, I think we've solved the answer then. Arms are functional if you train them for a reason. Let's get the wheel back up and we'll get another one going. I've put in, we'll see if one comes up. I've put in a couple of ones for new PTs in here, just because people like to hear it, I think. Oh, this is a good one. Can you actually bulletproof your body?
Cool. Do you want to go? You go first.
So I think I was actually chatting to someone about this the other day. So I think you can definitely train to make yourself less at risk of injury. But I also think there's a lot of there's just so many things that can injure you that there's just nothing any training could do to stop you getting injured. And I think those injuries are pretty common regardless.
I'm fully with you. It's that whole thing of like everyone kind of talks about load management and talking about like, okay, right, well, so long as you manage load sensibly, you're going to massively reduce the risk of soft tissue injury. If you prepare the body effectively over your off season, then you should be able to sustain that level of preparedness throughout your season, and the demands of your sport shouldn't ever really exceed your load tolerance, because of the fact you've exposed yourself to more load in that off season, you've then reduced levels of fatigue and you're prepared for action. But then at the same time, in a world of sport, there are things that are way outside of your control. Like, especially if you're in a sport where there is direct contact between individuals. Right, even sports where you don't think there's going to be direct contact between individuals, like cycling, It's still people getting some of the crashes in cycling are nuts, right? You look at like 1,500 meter sprint runners, and like how closely packed up they all are. Like the amount of like times they have to change their gait cycle in order to avoid making contact with another person's foot. The times they're getting pushed and jostled, all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's slightly outside of their control whether or not they're going to be in a position where they could get injured. Like if you train someone to the point that they are hundreds of meters down the road from everybody else, and their load tolerance is good, you're still pretty much guaranteed to stay safe. But I hate the there's like the functional training coaches that basically say, oh, we'll train like this and there's never going to be any risk of injury. And it's like, well, freak injuries happen. Like you can minimize the risk, but there's always a small percentage chance, and you can just get unlucky.
Yeah.
Like you could step off a curve in a way that's just awkward and slip and bust your knee up. Like it's
so easy to. I mean, I had this with a client the other day. They'd managed to like just smash their ankle, and they were really beating themselves up about it. And they were like, I don't understand what's happened. I've been training and blah blah blah. But they're like 116 kilos or something. They're a massive guy. They were at a jiu-jitsu session. And they jumped, the mat was a little bit out of place, and it just jutted their foot and they landed on the side of their ankle. It's like, you could have trained your ankles as much as you want. If 116 kilos lands dynamically on your ankle, on the side, like, it's going to go. Like, it's just going to go. There's nothing you could do about it. It wasn't the training. It wasn't that it overloaded himself. It was just a mat was at a funny angle. He didn't see it. He jumped, and his foot landed funny. And it goes. And it's like, you can avoid, I think, nearly all chronic injuries from lifting. But then again, if you do like a sport like jiu-jitsu with any form of uncontrolled contact, you might just keep tweaking your elbow and get it done one too many times.
A sport where the direct goal of your opposition is to injure you.
Oh yeah, I mean you're just
like you're just there like I'm going to avoid all injuries, but I'm going to let this guy try to rip my arm off.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, even things like rugby. I think people view rugby as really safe, and it's like, you can train to probably be fine in most rugby events, but if you just happen to jam your foot into the ground as someone tackles your knee, I don't care how good your quad extension is, your knee's going to fucking fall apart.
But also, like, over the course of the match, the quality of the pitch decays. So, like, you're going to end up in a position where there's little divots in the pitch, and there's an increased risk that your foot's going to be pushing at an off angle.
Yeah.
And you're trying to apply force through the outside of your ankle in a way that you can't really have trained for, or in a way that's not necessarily predictable, and you're just hoping that your body switches on in the right way. Like you say, I think there are loads of ways that you can train in order to try and bulletproof yourself. I think there are lots of things that you can do that will do that job better, whether that's like focusing a little bit more on the hypertrophy side of things, whether that's trying to do more isometrics and more eccentrics to try and strengthen your tendinous tissue and your fascial tissue. All of that stuff's great. Whether you can do specific exercises that work on the muscle groups that are most at risk of injury. So like if you're in a sprint-based sport, hamstring strengthening. If you're in a fighting-based sport, neck-based training. But even then, you're still putting yourself in an environment where you've just minimised the risk. You haven't completely and utterly. Got
100%. I mean, that's the truth of it, isn't it? You can't actually just reduce the risk of injury to zero. But it sounds like we both agree on the idea that you can reduce it. So if you're someone in let's say a contact sport, just because I think that's the easiest place to see where injuries could happen. But also, really any dynamic sport where you're not in full control. I mean, the example of the 1,500 meter running is great. Like, I wouldn't even thought about that, but constantly changing gait angle becomes so much easier to just enter a position you're not meant to be in or haven't trained for. So what would be what's like one of your number one pieces of advice for someone in those sports if they want to reduce their risk?
So like I say, like training multiple joint angles, multiple positions, movement patterns that aren't necessarily stereotypically thought of as being associated with your sport, but you can end up in positions. So like, if your sport doesn't necessarily require a huge amount of rotation, but occasionally you will find yourself in a position where you are trying to twist at speed, you probably want to be in a position where you've strengthened those structures so that you're capable of dealing with that one occasion where you have to twist at speed. But yeah, like I said, I think training your joints at multiple angles. So if you're doing triple extension, don't just think about things like squats and lunges. Think about lateral lunges. Think about rotational lunges. Think about single leg RDLs. Think about kickstand deadlifts. All of those sorts of things that challenge rotation and challenge lateral stability, as well as being able to challenge you through triple extension. Trying to find ways to improve coordination, so it's not just about your conscious control of movement, but it's also about your unconscious control of movement. So the idea of like attractors and fluctuations, like if anyone wants to look into that, is really, really interesting, in the sense that a lot of movements, particularly at high speed, if you do come up against a deviation in the movement pattern, you don't have the ability to consciously control how you react and adapt to that fluctuation. You have to have trained your body to understand how it's positioned in space, develop that proprioceptive understanding, develop reflexive control. So you're not sending a signal from your foot up to your brain, back down to your foot. If your foot ends up at a slight angle, you're sending that message to your spine, and your spine is sending a message back to your leg saying, okay, cool, we need to change and we need to move in this direction. So a bit of coordination work, working on different tempos of movement. So working the full spectrum from like pure isometrics all the way up to kind of explosive plyometric type actions, maybe even some overspeed training, so that you're strengthening different structures within that muscular chain, whether that's directly stimulating muscle adaptation or stimulating the connective tissue to adapt to a greater extent, and also changing the way that nervous control has to play a part in movement control. I'd say those are kind of the big key ones. And then if there is a muscle group that you can see there's a higher prevalence of injury risk within your sport, making sure that you train to avoid injury in that area. So like I say, like hamstring training for sprinters is a massive one, because that's one of the main things that will go in a sprint-based sport or in a power-based sport. Your hamstrings are likely to go. If you're a basketball player or you're a jumper, strengthening your Achilles, making sure that you're actually loading that eccentrically and isometrically to get that tendon to adapt fully is another big thing.
Yeah,
I feel like I just rambled quite a bit there. So,
I think you touched on everything though there. I think there's the only thing I'd add to it as well is just like eat and sleep well. It's like everything you said there's so true, and you build those capacities, and people actually do some. They don't do all of the work, and I think the velocities and the isometric stuff are really important things to touch on, because people forget that muscles don't work how like a piece of steel works. It's not like it gets thicker, therefore it's better. It's like these are different systems that work slightly differently. So you've got to train all of it. But also it's like you could do all of that, and then if you just eat like shit and sleep like shit for a week, you take 20% off your end range, and suddenly you might be back in risk again. Yeah. So
from a training perspective, I think we covered everything. And then the other side of it is making sure that you are doing the recovery work, because that is, that's the thing that most people that are relatively driven really struggle with, is knowing when they've done enough.
Yeah.
So they're not overloading, and not overtraining.
Yeah.
And resting and recovering enough so that they can push hard in their next session. But the thing you brought up a second ago, like one thing that I was chatting about with one of the other coaches at the gym, is just the viscoelastic nature of like connective tissue in terms of your tendons and your fascia. And if anyone wants to read into that, I think that's a really, really useful thing for people to look at. I won't go into it here because it's just like a massive, massive
to be
topic.
fair, I was like, if you want to go into it, I'd be happy, because actually something I've been trying to do is look into tendons more. I refuse to become a fascia guy, but I do think tendons. I think tendons are chronically. Oh, my ring. Anyway, I think tendons are chronically misunderstood, and like relatively ignored, and they're really important when you look at actual athletes.
Well, when you look at power output, so it's the basic summary is that your tendon operates differently dependent on how the load is applied to it. So if load's applied slowly, it tends to be more fluid in nature. It tends to elongate slowly. Whereas if you have a rapid application of force, it tends to be more dynamic in terms of how it responds to that. And that's just a really interesting thing when you think about it's because it's the same structure,
but it's like corn flour and water, right? Where you slap it and it goes hard. It's fundamentally a similar principle.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. But then the other side of it is the idea of tendons as a multiplier of force. So we think about force output, or we have typically thought about force output as coming from your muscles and then being applied through your tendon to your bones, rather than thinking about it as if I can stretch this tendon to a greater extent, it will then multiply its force output, multiply the force output that's created by my muscle, as opposed to it just being this kind of limp tendon that's just gradually yanking on my ankle.
I mean, it seems like it's an important thing to keep in mind. I mean, I'm sure they exist, but I find it hard to think of many athletic actions that don't start with a relaxation and a stretch into a fast contraction using that stretch to support it. I mean, hunting, throwing a javelin is probably one of the most like ancient ways humans have like evolved with our shoulder sockets, and that starts with a big setup, everything goes limp and stretchy, and then you try and pull it all together at the last second.
So it's...
Or not limp, it goes... You know what I mean? You let the muscles go limp, the tendons stretch, and then you contract as a rhythm.
So it's that whole thing of you create this isometric force. So you have a rapid lengthening. You allow yourself to rapidly lengthen to preload. You then create an isometric contraction of your muscle. But because you've got that rapid lengthening, your muscle can withstand that lengthening, but your tendons then lengthen. And then everything then recoils as one.
Yeah.
And you get that stretch reflex on top of it, which then leads to you producing more force. So
yeah, you jump, right? You swing into it, and then you go. I know people say that stretch reflex doesn't happen when you do that, but bullshit.
Yeah.
Bullshit. I mean, I don't care who's done the test. You can fucking feel it, mate.
You're going to get an additional benefit to a counter movement, whether that additional benefit comes from the stretch reflex or comes from the fact that the tendon itself is the thing that's then having to... But it's then being lengthened to a greater extent, and it's multiplying the force created by your muscle is a whole other thing. But yeah, I think it's underrated how much your tendons play a part. I think if we start saying your tendons play a massive part in movement, we have to start thinking about the fact that your fascial network also plays a part in movement. Yeah. Because it's the same system. It's slightly different in terms of how it operates, but it's like if you can create tension in one part of a chain, and as a result, that leads to a greater stretch on your tendon system within another part of the chain, which then leads to greater force output because of the greater elastic recoil. Yeah. It's all gonna play a role, and it's really, really interesting when you start looking at how human beings move in space independent. So, like, if you've got someone in midair trying to create movement against nothing but their own body, like how those chains operate together is a really interesting thing.
You ever look at cats falling in slow-mo to see how they twist their body?
I mean, it's
fucking so cool, man. Because you can, like, I think that's probably like one of the biggest proofs that there's these chains running through the body, because they'll just be like, yeah, I'm gonna turn against myself. Like, it's nuts. If just to all of you, if you ever want to see that the fascia exists, just go watch a cat fucking fall. It's mind-blowing.
Find a way to land on its own feet.
Yeah, it's absolutely mind-boggling to watch, because you just see these chains that people talk about that cross the body.
Have you ever read Anatomy Traits?
No, I'll be honest, I've actually read, I think, half of a sports training book in my entire life.
Fine.
I do need to read some more. I just haven't.
The thing is, some people learn through conversation, right? Some people learn through conversation and practice, other people learn by reading.
I want to be fair, but also the generation where like YouTube exists. So like most of my introduction to like fitness deep dives was YouTube.
I think that's so much better than Instagram.
Oh yeah. But I should get into reading more, because I do strongly believe the best, maybe not the best information, but I think the most detailed information gets conveyed via books. And they have a bit of a special property of when you read a book, it teleports the ideas directly into your brain in your internal voice. It's not like being shown an idea, it like conjures it in your mind. It's a kind of, I think, that might be me being hippy dippy, but I think it does something special.
Okay, I'll allow you to be hippy dippy and believe your special things.
That's why I like reading autobiographies, because I feel like you're just teleporting someone's thoughts into your brain.
Oh, right, so you just basically become that person and have all of their lived experiences as yours.
Sort of, right? You get the highlight reel. Like, it's like you read Nelson Mandela's autobiography and he's like, yeah, mate, here's the highlight reel of what I remember when I died. And that's like roughly, they've just been like, I'm going to sum up my conscious thoughts and teleport them into your brain in my words, but in your voice.
I need to stop listening to audiobooks and start reading autobiographies myself then.
Reading autobiographies is fucking cool, man. It's like my favourite way to read. But I'm definitely sidetracking us now. So we'll finish that one up. Basically, you can somewhat reduce your injury risk. But being completely uninjurable is not real. And your tendons are important, and so are books.
It's like when... I'm not good. I was about to go down the whole route of like... is free will a thing? What's the world in terms of determinism? Can you predict the future if you have all of the stats available to you? All of that. I'm just going to avoid it. Let's not get on it, because that could be.
Do you know what?
Between you and me, that could be a wild conversation.
Yeah, that could be pretty. I don't know if you find this, but I very much find the deeper I get into coaching and training, the more I'm like, fuck, man, you got to figure out the universe to figure out training. Like, I feel like it's all one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel. Oh man. Just everything, yeah. Let's move on. Let's move on.
Let's move on. Right, I'm bringing back up. I'm bringing back up the. Oh, am I bringing it back up? There we go. The Wheel of Names. What a great website as well. Shout out Wheel of Names for this just being a thing you can do. What are we gonna get? Oh, okay. This is a nice one. So I actually threw this in there because I did a Q&A on the Different Green School where obviously we were hosting these, and someone was just asking me general PT questions, and I thought, Xab's been a PT for nearly as long as I've been alive. I've probably got some advice that I can give. So, and I get this with people who've just qualified all the time. They're like, what advice would you give me? How do I build clients? Or, you know, what do I need to do to get started? What's your advice to someone to someone new from your lens so far?
I think it varies a lot. I think there are different types of people with different types of skill set, right? So there are people who are really, really good at marketing, people who are really good at coaching, and people who are just good people. And sometimes you get a combination.
I know exactly what you mean.
You know what I mean? But like you have some. So as a coach, like being able to deliver your service and being able to coach is obviously very important. Being able to relate to your client and being able to build a relationship with your client is very important. And being able to market yourself so you're actually able to do the other two things is important. Yeah. But people tend to excel in one of those three areas and tend to struggle in at least one of those areas. Yeah. So it's like, try and find a way to minimize, like to cover your weaknesses. So if you struggle with the delivery of your service, like for whatever reason, finding systems that you can put in place that go, okay, right, well, this is how I automate that. If you struggle with marketing, it's like, okay, right, well, how do I, like, can I pay for ads? Can I find a different way to market myself? Can I find someone else who's capable of marketing me? Can I work as part of it? Sometimes it's even like what you're doing with Different Breed, right? It's that whole thing of working within a team, because being a PT is incredibly lonely.
Yeah.
Because you're responsible for every single element of your business, and you're constantly trying to figure out ways to cover for the things that you're not very good at. Whereas if you're in a team with other people who are capable of doing the other side of the business, then that's a really useful thing. And I think like underrated, whether that's working within a business as a collective or working with other coaches who are good at other elements.
Yeah.
Separately, but together. So like if you know someone who's really good at the marketing, social media side of things, and you're not necessarily as good at that, work with them on what they're doing in terms of social media, and then provide them with the support they need in terms of knowing how to coach their clients better.
Skill swaps are an insane hack to improving your PT skills. Like I started off in Sweatbox, obviously. I don't think I'd necessarily advise people to join a private gym, or not private gym, independent gym straight away. Like actually if you go to a pure gym, you're going to get fed clients. But the massive benefit of joining Sweatbox as a brand newbie is I came in and I saw people like you who were established, good coaches who gave the advice of like, be nice, which sounds obvious, but like be nice to people, don't bullshit. You need to improve your knowledge around these things. And then you'd actually sit down and talk to me about it. And then it was like I had the opportunity to train with people who did martial arts and people who did Cali. And then you start absorbing this information and just like asking for fucking help on stuff you don't understand. And working with people you know is so invaluable.
I think there are the two things that I would bring up that I really like. I see people struggling with a lot when they start personal training is they'll be told by their personal training provider, like course provider, just get as busy as you possibly can. Just take on all the work you can.
Yeah.
And then overload themselves with all this work and then not be able to build in processes. So I would say try and find enough people that you can work with that you're not just going to be unable to feed yourself. but find out what find out what your weaknesses are and start to build processes that cover those.
Yeah.
And then the other side of it is like, how many coaches do you know who are good people, know enough to be a good coach, but doubt themselves insanely because of the fact that, like, oh, I don't know about this and I don't know about that, and I don't like, and it's like, great, it's good that you know what you don't know, but be aware also that you know a hell of a lot more than the vast majority of people coming in through the door of your gym. And if your goal is to try and help people, use the things you do know to provide as much value as you possibly can, and just gradually try and work on things, and don't feel like you need to over deliver, don't feel like you need to go above and beyond. Like the whole thing around like how many coaching cues you give when you're in a session. Like if you've got a new PT, you'll see them just like going, okay, right, well I need to tell you everything there is about this exercise, rather than just going, okay, right, today we're just going to really focus on correcting this one small deviation in terms of how you're moving. And instead of like trying to switch your workouts up every single week or every single session with no real thought behind it, just panicking that you might not be delivering enough excitement to the client, it's like, no. Let's make sure that we are still doing something progressive. Let's understand what the client wants. Let's know where they're going. Let's keep them updated about where they're going. But don't feel like you have to just over-deliver because of the fact you're lacking the confidence in your skill set. Yeah. Those would be my main things.
Yeah. Do you know what's interesting, actually? All of the things you spoke about, like processes and working with people and everything, I think, like, it's really important to remember you're running a business, and I think a lot of people who become PTs don't necessarily realise that, especially the people who jump straight into being an independent PT rather than being like hired by a company to provide a service. Because like when you start thinking about processes and how you take payment and how you maybe cover advertising and all of these things, it's not something a PT course touches on. They don't talk about the fact you're running a business. And something you said that's quite nice at the start is if people don't know who you are, you can't help them. Right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's so important to understand it's like you aren't just a PT, you are a marketer, you're a coach, you're a fucking, I don't know, you're an accountant. It's like you actually need to, there's a lot that goes into the skill set. So not overworking, massively important, you know. Every time you book an 8-hour shift for a day in the gym, that's all well and good, but you're probably going to do about 4 to 6 hours of work outside the gym for that 8-hour day. So, you know, if you've booked an 8-hour day, now you're looking at 14 hours for your 8-hour work day rather than 8. So it's like, actually, maybe just take 6 clients and then have the 2 hours for all the other shit you need. And, so remember, it's a business.
Talking about that, that's one thing that I do think people don't think about enough when it comes to running a personal training business is how to charge in a way that is fair and in accordance with the actual amount of work that you're going to do. So, like, I've talking about it with a couple of the PTs in the gym today, and it's the whole thing around like, okay, right, if someone sees me once a month, I'm working with that person for 1 hour in the gym. If someone sees me twice a month, I'm working with that person for 2 hours in the gym. If someone sees me 16 times in a month, I'm working with them for 16 hours in the gym. So you might think that there's this linear like scale of how you should charge those people based on the fact you're seeing them for 1 hour, 2 hours, 16 hours, right? But then if you don't take into account the stuff that's going on outside of the gym, like you say, like realistically, most clients, I would say, are going to take you 4 hours per month minimum outside of the gym to work with. So that person that you were seeing for 1 hour, you should be charging for 5 hours. The person you were seeing for 2 hours a month, you should be charging for 6 hours. The person you were seeing for 16 hours a month, you should be charging for 20. And trying to find a way of pricing yourself that allows you to do that is really important, and make sure that you're being paid for the hours outside of the gym, because otherwise you get people who are like, all right, well, it's £40 per hour for personal training. And it's like, okay, so the person who sees you least frequently actually consumes more of your time, causes you more trouble, is getting your service for like a lot less money than the person who sees you most frequently.
Yeah. And so, you want those frequent flyers, like those are the people you want, because you can, just as a coach, actually, that's a good bit of advice, is like you will just do an infinitely better job coaching someone you see frequently who is dedicated to showing up than you will for someone who comes to see you once a week or like every other week. Like, it's fucking hard to get progress with someone you see once a week, especially if there's someone who doesn't do anything outside of your sessions. Like, to be honest, they're not coming to see progress, they're coming to just hang out at that point. Maybe they're not telling themselves that yet, but like that's the reality.
I think, if they are literally only going to the gym once a week, like dependent on whether they're doing other things outside of that, so whether they're doing like runs or what
of course. If they're doing like 4 other sessions, it's a bit different. But if they're just a 1 a weeker and that's all they do, and they won't do more even if you ask them to.
I think you can see someone once a week and you can help them to maintain their health. So like if you've got someone who's got like a really, really busy day job, they're stressed out as hell, and they're not really managing to make the most of their time that they could be training, and you see them once a week, you can probably keep them relatively mobile, relatively fit, relatively at low risk of cardiovascular disease. That's kind of
I would agree with that 100%.
The other thing, so going back just quickly, so you were talking a lot about like viewing yourself as a business. I think that's another thing that you were absolutely bang on the money about. Like a lot of coaches, a lot of people who work for themselves, like as sole traders or have really small companies, are just like so anti-corporations, and they're like, they don't see any value whatsoever in corporations. And it's like, there's a reason corporations exist the way they do. There's a reason that they make as much money as they do. There's like, if it was more efficient to work in a different way, or more, not even more efficient, but more effective to work in a different way, the biggest companies in the world wouldn't operate in that with that system. So understanding that just because of the fact you currently don't see the value in something, or something's not your strength or your area of expertise, don't devalue that, because actually that's probably the thing that's going to bring the most value to you as an individual. Like whether that's the marketing side of things, whether that's the admin side of things, whether that's the HR side of things, in the sense of coaches, that's the relationship side of things with your clientele, right? It's so important to like view yourself as a business and try and find the most efficient way for you to deliver a service, because that's going to lead to you delivering the best possible service. Like 100%. The other side of it, I talk a lot with coaches who have a really, really good understanding of the science of sport, right? But they'll come with this mentality of absolute purism about like, okay, well, it's personal training, therefore it needs to be completely personal. And it's like, okay, so you're now rebuilding your business for each and every single one of your clients. So instead of having one business that delivers a service and a product that is good to multiple different clients, you basically have 20 different businesses, because each of those clients requires a different model, and you've built it up from scratch. And it's like, because there's no structure to that, you end up delivering a much worse service because you've been such a purist about delivering something personal. And it's like, especially when you start getting busy, if you're doing like 30 sessions a week, like you're going to struggle to deliver all of those with complete like individuality in terms of every element of how you deliver that business.
Especially working in person, like the different, like one of the biggest things that actually I quite liked about the switch online is you can personalize what you're doing so much more, because you've got the time. But it's like if you're doing the hour in person, like you say, it's going to take you about 4 hours outside the gym, and that's if you're pretty good at programming and understanding what you want to do with a client as well. Like at the start, it would take me hours to finish like a really simple program, even if I was working from like somewhat of a template. I just didn't know how to put things together. Like you've just got to do it enough times. So I think there is definitely this thing where you kind of need to decide, not necessarily who do you coach in the sense of like, oh, you need to be so niche that it's only like 30-year-old mums, but it's like me, like I didn't take on women post childbirth. I could probably do it, but it's like I'd have to completely reapproach the way I talk to my clients, reapproach the way I structure payments, frequency. Do you know what I mean? It's just a different thing. So we were talking about that in the gym as well today. So just the whole thing around like the number of people that will come to you and ask you for your service, but they'll tell you that they want to have a different type of relationship with you in terms of, so you'll say, these are the prices I charge, these are the products I deliver, and this is how it works. And they'll go, oh, I don't necessarily like that model, can we switch? And it's like, at a certain point, you just need to accept that actually the way you deliver your service is the way that works for you as an individual. Mm-hmm. And if they can't buy into that, then you're probably not the right coach for them. Yeah. I think it's so important. Like, that's one of the things that Ree, who's now obviously a part owner of a different breed, but before that, she was kind of helping me get on my feet with just being a PT. And one of the things she's like, you've got to remember that businesses aren't for everyone. So when I was an in-person PT, it was like I had one post-pregnancy client. It just didn't work because the way I'd approach training, it just wasn't right for her. It's like she'd have been better off with a different coach. So it was also silly for me to take her on Because now it's just a waste of both of our times.
Yeah, and I think when you're in the early stages, it's really easy to like just be like, okay, well, I just need to take this client because they've come to me and I need, and it's like you're better off finding the clients that want to work with you the way that you want to work, because with time you'll start to build like and those people will have word of mouth clients that they recommend to you, and then all of a sudden one client who you got on with really well, who really bought into what you were doing, gives you 3 clients that are their friends, and now you've got a really nice little business. Whereas if you end up trying to take on a client who doesn't work the way that you want to work, or doesn't want to work with your business the way that you want to deliver it, all of a sudden you're getting negative reviews and people talking about you negatively as an individual, and it's like that's worse for you in the long term. Like, and it's easy to just take the short term win, but actually the long term win is so much more important.
Yeah, like it's just turn them away if they're not right. Like people, I remember Ewan, because he's got such a different training style to me. He's obviously does so much bodybuilding, and I had a couple of people come to me, but I really want to do bodybuilding. I was like, I'll be honest, mate, I won't enjoy coaching it. It's not really programs I write. So like, I'll write you an all right bodybuilding program, but it will be a bit, it's different to everything I do. I was like, but Ewan over there, he loves bodybuilding. He'll be really passionate in your sessions. Go chat to him. And I think they ended up training together for like a couple of years. And it's like, if it had come to me, it had lasted 3 months and it'd quit.
Yeah.
Literally. So what's the summations there? It's kind of like treat it like a business, work with people, work for a team, ask for help, dig into the things you're bad at, and don't just try and serve everyone.
And remember that you're enough.
Yeah.
Remember that you're enough is like the key thing. Don't let that little voice inside of you telling you that you're not good enough yet stand in the way of you actually starting to make progress.
You've got to put the legwork in. You just got to put it in. It's like if I look back at some of the coaching sessions or the programs I wrote when I started, I'm like, oh my God. And in 10 years' time, I imagine I'll look at what I'm doing now like that.
But it's kind of going back to like what we were talking about earlier in terms of fascia, right? Like when 5 years ago, 10 years ago, definitely, I would have laughed at anyone who told me how important it was to train your fascia and train your tendons. Because I was like, no, we know that muscles are the thing that produces the force. Your tendons are just these little limp things that attach your muscle to the bone. You will switch things up as you go through and as you learn more. Just deliver the best quality of service you can with the knowledge that you have now. Yeah.
I actually always say, if someone's looking for a PT, I'm like, look, no PT is actually going to know everything. They'll all make mistakes. Go and find someone who seems like they genuinely care about your results, because it means they'll do the very best they can with the knowledge they have. And that's kind of all you can ask for.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I'd say that's probably the most important part of being a personal trainer, is just genuinely caring about your clients, right?
Yeah, you just got to want to see them win and do the work that helps them win. Sick. I think that's some good advice. Do you want to do a final one to round out the episode?
Go for it.
Sick. Let's do one more. I feel like we've actually not been that yappy so far, impressively.
I feel proud of myself for having managed to just about stay on topic.
Have you just got all the ADHD thoughts floating here, having to bat them away?
I'm visualising them on this whiteboard behind me.
And they're just fucking them off. Here's another good one.
Yeah. I'm just gonna write a little list.
Just slowly put them up. How do you build your own understanding / model of fitness?
Oh.
That's a good one. I bet you'll like that. Mr. literally builds his models.
Oh man, that's. I think it's just having as broad a possible understanding as you can of every single modality, and just respecting every modality of fitness and every modality of training, because it's so easy. If you start off with this mentality of like, right, well, I have this goal, and everyone that I know that talks about training for my goal talks about doing it in this particular way, so therefore this is the way. It's too limiting. You're not really building your own modality of fitness. You're not building your own understanding of fitness. You're just basically being preached to about how you should coach your clients. Whereas if you can go, okay, right, there's clearly a lot going on with the human body. Like, it's so complicated. It's like training is multifaceted and can go in any direction. Like, you can start to bring in different things from different worlds. Oh man, that's a big question, Sam.
It's a big question. Yeah, I thought I'd just throw it in there. Do you know what I always come down to? When people ask me like something like how did you figure out how to do stuff? I personally think an awful lot of it is trial and error. I think you have to learn an element of like
fuck around, fuck and find out.
Fuck around and find out a bit, right? Because you've got to have an understanding of the scientific basis of the stuff you're doing. It's like you need to understand it's like you've got different energy systems, and you've got to understand that there's genetic variation in populations, and you kind of understand all these rules, but then you also have to understand how important someone's personality is in the way they respond to training, that like adherence and lifestyle is going to have maybe more of a factor on what they're going to do. So you have to kind of take all these rules, then filter it through the lens of like fucky stuff humans can do, and then kind of shake it out for each individual. And I think you kind of only learn how to do that by just getting people in front of you and giving them shit and being like, that worked, that didn't, I'll try that with a similar person again, see if it works. And sometimes it won't, and then you've got to figure out, well, what was the difference that I missed? And I don't know, for me it's been, okay, every time I've got a goal, I'm like, what similar goals have I done? How does that relate to similar people? And that's how I create kind of micro lenses for individuals. But I think the overarching goal of fitness has been similar to how you said. For me, is it's like everything kind of works. It's about how you apply it.
Yeah, I think what you said there. I think the most important thing, really, in my mind, isn't to understand like the practical science of things, because the practical science of things shifts so much, and it just like constantly spirals. And actually, it tends to be about 10 years behind the fundamental science of training, which is anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, like a little bit of physics thrown in there. Do you know what I mean? Like all of those things are the things that you need to understand the most. If you have a decent understanding of physiology, biochemistry, anatomy, you're going to be able to pick up what different people are doing with different training modalities really, really quickly. I think, like I say, respecting what everybody does, working with people with lots of different goals, allowing people to work with other coaches. So like it's really easy as a coach to go, okay, right, well, I want to work with this person to achieve their goals, but I want this person to buy into what I'm doing. And it's like, if you let them buy into what other people are doing, and then you start to work around those different coaches, you start to get a better understanding of how those different coaches operate. But then you want to build an overall system in your mind of how you expose your client to load, how you understand that load, how you measure that load. It's
crazy because every PT will be different in how they've perceived it, and especially when you get to like high level coaches. I think something you touched on quite nice there though is what are the guiding principles of how training works, and it is biochemistry, biology, physiology, a little bit of physics. And I was quite lucky, like my background isn't at all to do with sports science. I did a year of a chemistry degree, a year of engineering degree, and then 3 years of a zoology degree. But that ended up giving me a weirdly nice like spread of understanding across chemistry and physics and biology to kind of look at people and go, I kind of get how training works.
Yeah. But I mean, that's a pretty broad sense of a pretty broad understanding of science.
Yeah, because it comes to, I don't know about you, like for me, the thing that made it click in my head, I was like, training's basically stimulus. Training is sort of weird because when you look at humans sort of do mini evolutions over really short periods of time. Like the same, like when you look at a human going from being like a powerlifter to a marathon runner over their lifetime, it works very similarly to like if you've got a species that gets geographically split and one of them needs to like move heavy rocks to eat fucking ants and the other one needs to run far to catch an antelope, and over a million years you'll see this change. Humans just do it fast because we were migratory animals. So I always kind of take a weirdly evolutionary lens at it.
I think it's the whole thing of epigenetics. Epigenetics is the fundamental principle that underpins like our training environment, right? So our training programs. So it's not so much that we're evolving into a completely different species, but exposure to a specific stimulus will lead to you over promoting and upregulating certain like gene codes that will produce certain proteins that will then change the way that certain structures interact within cells, and that will then change the way that your body performs. And we're one of the only, like, because of the fact we don't have this like need to act in a certain way for our survival anymore. We've basically moved beyond a period where our environment affects us and into a period where we as a species affect our environment, we get the opportunity to choose how we manipulate that environment in order to change our body's response. So that's what we're doing with training. It's like,
it's
okay,
crazy.
well,
it's crazy. It blows my mind. Because you're so right. When you train, it isn't like an evolution into another species. You're just changing your genetics. You're literally changing what genetics are being expressed within your body to a certain extent. Like it's like your body. It's like, cool. I'm going to be a more muscular genome now.
It's like, okay, right, I've got more hypoxia in this cell. Okay, as a result of the fact I've got more hypoxia in this cell, how do I prevent that situation from arising again? Okay, well, I need to increase the delivery of oxygen to this cell, but I also need to become more efficient in terms of how I use energy within this cell, so that I'm not utilizing as much oxygen. And then you just start upregulating genes that are associated with both of those things. So you start getting improved pathway, upregulation of certain enzymes that are associated with anaerobic metabolism. It's all of those little things, and it's like, okay, right. So if I know that hypoxia,
you got me.
I'm going to switch cameras.
Okay.
Just because I think it's struggling to connect. Can you see me or not?
I can't, but it did cut out a little bit earlier and it came back on, so I just assumed it was going to be fine.
Okay, I think it might just... Okay, sweet. It's saying that my device is currently struggling to record, because I think we've just been recording for so long and it's killing my laptop. Where was I? We were talking about... So yeah, if you know that hypoxia is the thing that's going to lead to a certain epigenetic process that you want to, so a certain response that you want to stimulate, there are so many different ways that you can create a hypoxic environment within a muscle cell, right? So it's understanding what the specific stimulus is that you're trying to achieve in order to create the adaptation you want, and then which different mechanisms you can use to produce that stimulus, and then which of those you want to combine to produce that stimulus to not overload that pathway and lead to you kind of falling off a cliff in terms of that hormetic response. But yeah.
So really what we're saying, it comes down to is it's like, in a weird way, you got to get kind of nerdy with it, because it comes back to thinking in terms of building your own model, it's sort of break it down to what you need to think about. So you can go all the way down to this genetic level and think about the purpose of training. Sometimes that can be a useful way to think about training plans and the thing you're approaching. Other times with other people, maybe not so useful. It's just about, I don't know, layering up as you go. Or layering down, maybe. I would always start the most simple thing. So it's if I know more volume makes you bigger and you do one session a week and I'm cool, let's do 2, that might be all the lens I need or the mental model I need in that specific training. And then I guess as you go through what goals are or what you think someone needs, you can get deeper and deeper into those underlying principles all the way down to that genetic level long term. Yeah,
I think so. That's kind of the understanding side of things and building up your understanding of how the body reacts and what fitness is. But then from the perspective of actually developing your own model, that's the process side of the business, right? So that's when we're talking about, okay, right, how do I deliver this service? What's the most efficient way for me to deliver this service? What tools can I do to make sure that I build this service, that I develop this service in a better way? So what questionnaires do I get people to fill in when they're signing up to my business? What fitness tests do I use? How many different fitness tests can I have? Yeah. How do I combine those fitness tests for specific individuals? How frequently do I check that? How do I focus primarily on developing a concurrent system of training, or do I think about a linear periodization model? What system works best for me? What system works best for the athletes that I'm working with? And it's building that model based on your own personal experience to start with is probably the best way to go about doing it. So it's that whole thing of have your personal goals in mind, have your personal training modality as the fundamental thing that you build that model on, but have that respect for all the other stuff and build your understanding of that other stuff so that you can then add to your model and expand your model so it can cater to as many people as possible. But yeah, streamlining and building a model is key, because otherwise you're never going to be in a position where you have a successful business.
It's useful. And I think I think it's interesting as well, because actually we've both been talking about your model, but actually it's a model that is then like kind of twisted based on what's in front of you. So it's kind of like model/models, and you kind of have to make this underlying one. And like what we have at Different Breed for all the coaches, we actually have like, these are our core beliefs of programming. So it's like an example would be like, we're like movement optimistic, and we've got that means we believe the body can adapt to the movements put on it. There isn't anything inherently dangerous if programmed appropriately. And we have those rules, and then obviously what we then do as individual coaches is we split that out to right. If I'm taking this lens, maybe it's a hypertrophy lens because that's the main goal someone has, but they also want to run a marathon. Okay, we know we want them to get bigger. We need to blend that with this, marathon running lens, and then we want to draw down these beliefs, and then what does that create? And I think you have to have these really multi-layered systems that are kind of like idealistic in some cases, where it's just ideas that you fundamentally believe in, and then you need to have these scientific facts essentially that you need to smash together and try and make something new.
Yeah. No, I'd say that's a really good, like, that's a really good way of looking at it, because it is that whole thing of you have like this overarching series of principles, but then it's this like network and this web that you're kind of building off of that, and you're just trying to guide this person through this web to whatever their end goal is.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's I mean, like I say, that was a huge question to try and finish on.
We're going to get a blog
with
you soon, aren't we? Like on this topic, I can see it.
Oh man, once I've got through through to the wedding and we're done with all the wedding planning.
Yeah, you're getting married soon, aren't you?
5 weeks. 5 weeks tomorrow.
No way. How are you feeling?
Like really, really happy, mate, to be honest. It's like it's one of those things where it's fatiguing thinking about all of the small decisions that you need to make. But like in terms of just where we're going, like couldn't be happier, man.
Getting
like,
to that day will be incredible as well. That would be so cool.
Getting to the rest of your life afterwards is the other part of it as well, man. Just being able to just sit back.
That's like one of those really adult milestones. Like as an English person, like I'm sure Americans probably get similar thing. I imagine a lot of Europeans, but obviously not all countries necessarily have that same like. You're part of the married world now, because like we've got this kind of like split in England where some people your age are like I'm single forever, and other people are like family life. Yeah.
I think it's a milestone on one particular path that you can take in your life, right? So it's like there's milestones in your career, there's milestones in your social life, there's milestones in your health and fitness journey, and there's milestones in your relation. And this is like buying a house together is huge. Yeah,
that always I guess feels bigger.
I mean, it gives you a lot more. Like that one gives you a much bigger sense of security. This one's just a happy one, right? Like in practice, it's a piece of paper. Yeah, there's some legal benefits to it, but like actually, like the biggest thing is like you've just committed to each other. Buying the house is the thing that kind of gives you that sense of like, okay, cool. I've got a space that's mine with this person, and we get to build our lives here. But yeah, no, I'm happy, man. Like, and I'm looking forward to the honeymoon in Canada, and I'm looking forward to
that's going to be awesome. I'm happy for you, man. Congratulations. Right. And I think that's quite a nice note to end on, like a happy life advice segment. So yeah, thanks for listening, guys. We'll catch you next time.
Take care, team.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.